When you speak, mute it on your own.
Okay. This meeting's called to order. Welcome to the Town of Avon Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. If you're interested in having a copy of the agenda or the staff reports, they're available on the tables to the right of the audience. This meeting is being recorded for the public record. Because of this we request that all personal conversations are kept to a minimum and all cell phones are set to vibrate with any phone calls taken outside the chambers. If you are interested in commenting during any public hearing, please sign up on the sheets located on the tables to the right of the audience. When your name is called, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please address your comments to the board and not to staff or the appellant. Your comments should relate directly to the case at hand. We do understand that there may be several persons who wish to speak. The chair may therefore impose a time limit on each person. Federal law requires that the town make available to all attendees a Title IV public involvement survey. These surveys are on the table to the right of the audience. Members of the public who wish to complete this survey may also do so and place them in the designated area. If because of a disability, any person in attendance needs assistance or accommodations to fully participate in this meeting, please notify staff. Thank you for your assistance in facilitating a respectful, fair, and timely meeting. Again, welcome to our meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take roll, please.
I will now take roll call. Catherine Ransberg.
Here.
Ann Inman.
Present.
Marcy Tashler.
Present.
Paul Guckenberger. Here. Marcus Turner.
Here.
We have a quorum.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from June 17, 2021. Has everyone had a chance to review those? Does anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns? If there are none, we'll entertain a motion.
This is Ann Inman. I move that we approve the minutes of June 17th, 2021 as written.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Inman and a second by Mr. Guckenberger. Is there any discussion? Are we ready for a roll call vote? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of myself here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Request for continuances or agenda modifications. Is staff aware of any? None? Number 5, consideration of resolution on electronic participation policy. What's that, Bill?
Yes, this would be a resolution to amend your rules and procedure. Currently, under the governor's executive order for COVID, you are allowed to participate in meetings electronically. That is set to expire at the end of the month. However, the state legislator has authorized you to pass a resolution and a policy to continue participating electronically. So that's what this resolution does. Just to go into a little bit of it, at least 50% of the membership must be present for an individual to participate electronically, and that individual cannot participate electronically more than 2 consecutive meetings. It also would allow that member participating electronically to be considered present for determining a quorum, as well as cast a final vote. Previously, some boards and administrations were allowed to have electronic participation. However, they weren't allowed to take a final vote electronically, but this resolution would allow that possibility. There are some exceptions that you'll see in Section 4 that detail when electronic participation is not authorized, including when you submit your budget or you impose any fees or increases in penalties. And This will go into effect upon adoption and will continue that way until you amend or abolish it completely. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So I do have a question as far as, so what we're looking at is this is Indiana code. This is anything special for Avon.
That's correct. The General Assembly in March made this available to all municipalities and all governing boards to adopt.
And the reason I ask that is specifically to be that a member can't attend more than 50% of the meetings in a calendar year electronically. So
Correct.
while we have to have at least 3 people present, then any one of us can't have more than 6 meetings electronically.
That's correct.
All right.
And it's really just beneficial for someone's out on vacation or traveling for work who still wants to participate in the meeting remotely. That's when it's going to come in handy. But, if you think back just a few months ago when everyone was doing it remotely and that's abolished, so at least 50% will have to be here, but it will come in handy as we get to hopefully the tail end of this pandemic.
Has the council or the planning commission or anybody else adopted this yet?
You'd be the first board in Avon to adopt it. I know that the Plan Commission has asked for it to be put on their agenda, and I believe the town council is considering it at their next work session.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the board? And keep in mind, we don't have to make a decision on this tonight. We can have some light discussion and come back at it later, or if everybody has their mind made up, we can go one way or another.
I don't see the harm in postponing it till next month's meeting.
Okay. Did anybody have any other questions or any further discussion about it? Then we will, we don't need to table this issue, do we, Mitchell? We can just, okay. Then we will move on. We have no old business, and moving on to new business, we have variance 21-10 Engelmann. Staff?
Thank you, Bill.
All right, first up, we have variance 21-10 Engelmann. This is a request to grant a variance of development standards from Table 8.3 of the Avon zoning ordinance to allow the platting of one lot with a depth to width ratio of 6.78 to 1 in an R2 district, whereas the maximum depth to width ratio is 3 to 1 per the Avon zoning ordinance. A bit of history on this property. There's not much. However, please note that there is a minor plat that is pending before the Plan Commission. That is MIP 21-02. It's a minor plat to subdivide the subject parcel into 4 separate lots for residential use. It is during the review of that minor plat that the need for a variance for the lot depth to width ratio was realized. Thus, the approval of this minor plat is subject to the approval of this variance. Let's talk about the surrounding uses and the zoning of the subject parcel. The subject property is zoned R2 and it's currently vacant. The surrounding parcels are zoned residentially and are improved primarily with single-family residences. But note that the property abutting the north lot line is Avon Gardens, which is a commercial use garden and wedding venue. Also note the properties which abut the easternmost and westernmost lot lines of the subject property are outside town limits. And we can see that here in this exhibit, the subject parcel surrounded in the green. Above, we have Avon Gardens. To the south, we have the Stratford of Avon subdivision. And then delineated in the gray would be those areas outside of the corporate town limits. Next up, we have the proposed subdivision per the minor plats. Now, this is a prospective subdivision of this property into 4 lots. As I said, under MIP 21-02, this would effectively create 4 lots. 3 of those lots along Juliet Drive on the west side would meet the depth to width ratio as required by the zoning ordinance. However, the lot 4 here would not meet that. As we can see, I don't know if you can read that there, but there's a lot width of 100 feet, whereas there is a lot depth of 678.56. That would create a lot depth to width ratio of 6.78 to 1, which is obviously greater than the required 3 to 1. I think it's important to note that the intent of this standard is to minimize the creation of long and narrow lots, minimize the platting of flag lots, and to minimize the number of lots along the stretch of a single road. And I actually have some examples of that here, if you can see that. Do you mind making it larger? Nope. There we are. So this is actually from Johnson County, I believe. It's not in Avon. However, these are good examples of the intent of these standards to eliminate lots such as these, which have these long, narrow, into larger openings here. And then also we have these long, narrow lots here. Now, it's important to note, going back, would you mind clicking on the PowerPoint? There we go. The ordinance states that the lot width is determined at the location of the minimum front setback of that zoning designation, which in R2 would be 25 feet. So we can see the 25-foot building line here, and that's where the lot width is determined. However, if the setback were to be pushed back 25 feet from where this larger opening is here, that would effectively create a larger lot width, and that would thus meet the standards set forth in the ordinance. So staff believes that the location where the setback line is established could be considered a practical difficulty in creating these type of estate lots. And for that reason, staff recommends approval of VAR 21-10, subject to one condition, and that condition would be that the front setback would be platted at 165 feet, therefore making the lot width to depth ratio meet the standards of the ordinance.
Ian, can you point out again on the map where you're talking about increasing the setback?
Yes, ma'am. So normally it is taken from this 25-foot line here. And if we were to take it just 25 feet from where it opens up right here, it would certainly meet that 3-to-1 lot depth to width
Okay.
ratio.
If you push the setback back to that point, it actually becomes an almost 1-to-1 lot.
Okay,
One lot wide by 1 lot deep. It's just
So-
that small 140-foot section that, because we have to take the measurement from the 25-foot line when we're measuring the lot width, that's why it doesn't meet the it goes 6.7 to 1. But if we actually by condition push that setback line back past where that point opens up there, it would meet the standard.
and so basically that little rectangular space would just become a much larger buffer zone.
Yeah, pretty much.
And what are the practical implications of that with regards to the
Well, the
landowner?
petitioner, in this instance, has shown a conceptual plan that has the home on lot 4 way to the back, right there.
Mhm.
So that's where they intend to put it anyway, or at least that's where they've shown it when they've filed the plan.
Okay.
Questions?
If there's no questions, we are right here for the petitioner. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I want to make sure, so in reading, so this petition, in looking at the history, I just want to understand, it has an approved waiver for sidewalks on this?
No, it's got a petition pending before the Plan Commission, and part of that petition is a request for a waiver of sidewalks. The Plan Commission hasn't acted on that, but that's part of the condition. That's part of the request for a plat that's pending before the Plan
Okay,
Commission.
thank you.
Hi, good evening. For your record, I'm Andy Colt with Comerl Office at 71 West Marion Street, Danville. I don't have a, can we get that plat, the proposed plat?
Yep, sorry about that. There was just a brief discussion there, and I think that hits on the head what we consider the driver here is, in terms of your practical difficulty, is that provision in the ordinance that states that the width, when looking at this 3-to-1 ratio, is measured at the required front yard setback line for that zoning district. So as pointed out, it's at that 25 foot. And as also pointed out, the intention is for an estate lot with a home back further. So that 100 feet stretch here, well, let me do it on this one. You're all facing that way. That 100-foot stretch there would be, was intended to be simply driveway space anyway. If we went to meet the technicality, we'd probably be looking at some space above lots, or if we went this size, we might be getting additional lots in there, maybe 4 lots. So really we're keeping the lot count at a minimum by going this route. And obviously, as you can see, the vast bulk of this lot, there is no problem with that ratio. So it's the difficulty in our mind is that provision with the 25 feet. And we are agreeable to putting the setback above where it widens. They certainly aren't going to build anything in front of that area.
This may be a question probably for Bill, but does that create an easement for the town, pushing that setback?
No, it doesn't create any sort of easements. It just limits where the structures can be constructed on the property.
Okay.
That will be in essence a self-imposed commitment by us on the recorded plat.
Okay. Is that all you had for us?
Yeah, if you've got any questions, happy to do my best.
We'll get to questions here in a minute.
Okay.
At this point, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone who is either signed up or wishes to speak?
No one has signed up.
Okay. If anyone would like to speak on this, this is your opportunity. And with no one, yes. You can come forward the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Erin Sprager. I live on 6462 Juliet Drive. And I guess for clarification, what was the comment in regard to sidewalks? Are they saying that they will not or that they will provide sidewalks on Juliet?
There is a waiver on file requesting relief from the sidewalks in, the Plan Commission hasn't acted on it. So
Okay.
That is a request for relief that the Plan Commission has to act on. The Plan Commission has not been able to act on this petition because the Board of Zoning Appeals has to dispose of this request first before the Plan Commission can act on it.
Okay, so one step at a time. We just
Yeah.
haven't gotten there
So
yet.
they are asking for a waiver of sidewalks. I believe they're asking for a waiver of sidewalks along 625, but are willing to build along Juliet Drive.
Okay.
But I'd have to look that up. Yeah, it's a request to remove the requirement to construct a sidewalk walk along the east side of North County Road 625. So I believe that they still intend to construct sidewalks along Juliet Drive, just not along that north-south section of Lot 1 where it's adjacent to 625.
Okay, at this particular time, does the city have any plans to put sidewalks along 625? Because I know it is a very busy spot for walkers, runners, bikers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we've got a plan, but
Okay, that, enough
whether
said.
we've executed, we don't
Enough
have any,
said. I
we
would
don't have
hate
any
to have
capital
that
improvements plan that we've
relief
executed in the near
done.
term.
And then have a missing spot where it hasn't been filled in, so.
Yeah, we
Okay.
haven't really looked hard. I've got to talk to the town manager about the waiver request and see what he thinks about it, but,
I get it one step at a time. I just want to make sure that I understood that part of it. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Comments?
Hi, my name is Dave Benware. I live at 6376 Juliet Drive. I have two questions. One, will these properties or residences be part of Stratford Avon Homeowner Association? And then two, the driveway, since my house is right next to the driveway, is there any kind of maximum or minimum space where that driveway will be coming through?
Thank you. Let's see, that one. Give me just a minute here. Anyone else wish to speak? If not, we will close the public hearing and open it up for discussion. If you could, I'd like to lead off with the two questions that were just asked. Is it the intention that these will be brought into the HOA and then discuss a little bit the drive and how you're going to
Did you say
protect those
lead out
homeowners?
or leave out? Lead out? Because I was going to address it. I thought I heard.
Go ahead.
In terms of the HOA, that hasn't even come up. I think the answer is no. When you would normally see something like that would be more in a condominium setting where you've got an expandable condominium, where in the initial dedication of certain land to the horizontal property regime, you also indicate in that set of covenants that we've got a larger piece of real estate where it's potential to bring more property into the HPR. And in that case, you usually see a dedication of future land. I've never seen it on something like this where you've got a meets and bounds description outside of a longstanding subdivision where it's joined in. So I think the answer is no on that. In terms of the driveway, I might defer and see, Bill, has there been any, I'm just not aware of where they're planning to put it. In terms of the question, is there a minimum? As long as it's in their property line, no.
There's no
But
setback for driveways, so they could theoretically put it on the property lines if they want to. I think the conceptual plan showed the driveway of lot 4, like right in the middle of that 100-foot strip. I mean, it obviously it depends on the house that they put on there, where the location of the garage is and those sorts of things. So the notional one, the house that goes on lot 4 that goes all the way to the back, they put the driveway right in the middle. But the other 3, probably not, because they haven't gotten to the point where they're deciding where to put a house. But there is no necessarily setback from the property line for a driveway. They could put it right on the property line if they wanted.
And just for clarification, Bill, I'm assuming that if he's already stated that there's no intention to bring this into the Stratford HOA. I'm assuming that is something that would have to be dealt with at the Plan Commission level anyways. That's not something we were authorized to hear.
Yeah, I'm similar. The only time I've ever seen a section, it's been subsequent sections of the same subdivision over and over again. This one is going to be called the Engelman Minor Plat, so it won't even be called Stratford of Avon at all. So my guess is if it has covenants and restrictions, it'll be its own entity and not part of Stratford.
But again, this board has no jurisdiction over
No.
that.
I actually lived in a subdivision that had 10 homes, 15 acres immediately adjacent. This was in Zionsville. Immediately adjacent was going to be developed. And it did become part of our HOA. And it was through negotiations with the developer and our HOA. It was we did not want the land to be developed in a way that was inconsistent with homes that were already there. And that developer was open to having that development, having those additional 5 homes put into our HOA. So I actually was part of those conversations, but it was not adversarial. It
Right.
was a friendly workaround.
Yeah, that may be the case. It is covenants and homeowners association or private agreements amongst the homeowners in that subdivision. So if the Stratford of Avon Homeowners Association wants to speak with a petitioner and try to convince them to incorporate it into the Stratford of Avon development, they and their homeowners association, we would have no objection to that. But it wouldn't be a requirement of the town to do that.
Bill, fill me in here. This is zoned R2, and we're going to have 4 little lots I'm sorry, three small lots and 1 mega lot, I'll call it.
Right.
Being zoned R2, what are the things you can do on that go beyond residential? Are there any institutional uses allowed on there? Is there
No,
any
I mean,
type of co-residence,
Yeah,
commercial
it's
type
single, it's
config-
as R2, it's single family residential subdivision is basically, or single family residential use. I would have to get the permitted use table and I did.
And let me explain where I'm going with this. A few years back, we had I believe it was at the Plan Commission level, had a request that somebody had a house and they accessed their home through a subdivision, but they weren't in the subdivision. And they asked to build a big old barn out there. The guy was building a business and there were concerns about driving trailers with heavy equipment on it, through the neighborhood
Right.
to get back to this big piece of property he had. I just want to make sure we're not getting into a situation like that.
No, I mean, those type of land uses wouldn't be permitted on that big lot or any of the lots for that matter. I mean,
Okay.
if they were to do some sort of business, it would have to be accessory to the primary use as a single family residential.
Any
use.
institutional uses like a school be permitted?
Well, if they do, I would have to check the permitted use table. I want to say that they would either have to rezone it to institutional or they would have to get a use variance because I do not believe that our ordinance allows churches and schools in residential districts on a special exception. I think it only allows it in the institutional zoning classification by
It's
right.
only, what is that, 4 acres? Is that, no, 9, it's 10 acres, so
It's close to 10, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can theoretically, it's a decent lot for a church, or it's probably a little bit too big for a church or.
I can tell you, and it's for whatever you take it, the developer is planning on putting their home on that lot.
Okay.
So,
And, and as far as intention goes, it's just a single home?
I'm sorry.
It's a single home? They're not
Yeah.
planning a big compound for their family? Right? I've seen a lot of those arrangements too.
Well, and with the plat, with it being a single platted lot, if they wanted to do something like that, they would have to replat it.
Subdivided, okay.
And they would need they would need a lot of variances
Yeah.
to do that too. So you would see that, you'd have another bite of that apple.
That's when you'd start seeing those flag lots and that type of thing.
And then circling back to the issues of the effect on the property values and the safety and general welfare. We had the comment about the driveway, and 100 foot's a pretty good space there. I just wanted to make sure that whoever has the existing home there, I want to make sure they're not going to have headlights in their windows in the middle of the night as these guys come rolling through, because that'll really make their lives miserable. The intention is to go right down the center of that lot, and I'm assuming there'll be some type of
Well, yeah,
It's a plan commission question about.
yeah, I mean, I
screening.
can't, I hesitant to tell you what their intention is because I don't know. I mean, I agree with your point. When you've got 100 feet to put a driveway in, to me, it wouldn't make sense to put it right next to 5 feet away from another driveway. I don't want to commit to you something that I don't know.
Okay. That's an issue that can be handled at the plan commission level.
So I have a question about construction access to that property. So when this begins, where do you access? Where does construction equipment? How all of that be orchestrated?
I assume, looking at the aerial, the only access is off Juliet Drive. So, and again, I'm not trying to be, I don't want to sound like I'm being flippant on your answer, but whether this was developed as one home, two homes, or four homes, everything's going to come off of that Juliet Drive. That would be your standard place to come in. I mean, so going within that 100 feet, their traffic will go in there as they're building that home.
So just looking at the criterion here, so I would agree with the staff's assertion that criterion 1, that it will not be injurious to the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. On criterion 2, I would not expect it to have an adverse impact on the adjacent properties. I think it might have a positive impact having an estate home in that area there. So I agree with the staff's assertion on that. On criterion 3, I do agree that there is no practical difficulty and that we need to impose that condition for us to meet that practical difficulty because, I mean, with what staff has written up here, I would agree with them that unless there's a condition that would alleviate that, it doesn't seem to be a practical difficulty. And then, again, I agree with that this is the minimum requested as staff has indicated on criterion 4.
I would second that. I would definitely second the agreeing with what the staff has written up here, particularly since petitioner has. Also agree with what staff has recommended here, particularly since petitioner has already indicated that they're willing to agree to increasing the size of the setback in order to come within the requirements of the zoning ordinance.
And I'm in agreement with that. I think the practical difficulty's been well established there. And I did bring up an issue about the drive, and I would hope that the plan commission would flush that issue out on their end.
So I have a question for staff on criterion 5, because you don't specifically state that you agree with the assertion or with what petitioner.
We agree.
You do?
We do.
That was probably a mistake in my part while I was drafting it.
Okay.
I must have hit delete or something.
I just wanted to make sure, because with the not being in there, is okay, we missing something, so, okay.
Ian showed me that this afternoon, and I was like,
Okay. And I would agree with that.
Any other questions or discussion? Oh, and I guess the other thing, we're all in agreement with the staff's recommendation and the petitioner's acceptance of the condition. Lot 4 shall have a platted setback line of 165 feet from the right-of-way of Juliet Drive. We're on board with that? Okay. Any other questions or discussion? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move we approve variance 2110 Engelmann depth to width ratio variance with the condition that lot 4 shall have a platted setback line of 165 feet from the right-of-way of Juliet Drive.
I second that motion.
A motion by Mr. Guckenberg.
I second that motion.
A motion by Mr. Guckenberger, a second by Mrs. Ransberg. Any discussion? Ready for a roll call vote?
Take a roll call vote. Catherine Ransberg.
Four.
Ann Inman.
4?
Marcy Tashler. Paul Guckenberger.
4.
Marcus Turner.
4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approved 5-0.
Next item on the agenda is variance 21-11, 709 North Avon Avenue. Staff?
And next up, we got variance 21-11, 709 North Avenue. Similarly to the previous petition, this is a request to grant a variance of development standards from Table 8.3 of the Avon zoning ordinance to allow the platting of one lot with a depth to width ratio of 3.39 to 1 in an R3 district, whereas the maximum is 3 to 1 depth to width ratio per the Avon zoning ordinance. A bit of history on the subject parcel. It was annexed into the town in 2014 for ordinance 2014-01, and it was taken in as a R3 zoning designation. There is an administrative subdivision pending for the Plan Commission seeking to combine these two lots into a single lot. That minor subdivision is MIPA 21-01. Furthermore, the owner has expressed their desire to construct a pole barn on the rear parcel, the easternmost parcel, which has led them to seek this variance. Likewise, the approval of this minor plat is subject to the approval of this variance of development standards. Talk about the zoning and surrounding uses. Subject properties are zoned R3, and one lot is currently improved with a single family residence. That's the front lot, the westernmost lot. The surrounding properties to the north, south, east, and west are zoned residentially and are primarily improved with single family residences. And the properties which abut the north and west lot lines of the subject property are outside the town limits. And we can see that shown here. The subject parcels, lots indicated in the dashed green here, abutting Avon Avenue. The area delineated in this gray overlay is outside of the corporate town limits. So basically they're seeking to consolidate these two lots into a single lot, but that consolidation would result in a lot that exceeds the maximum lot depth to width ratio. Staff does not believe that the request represents a potential injury to the public health, safety, or general welfare of the community, nor would the area adjacent to the property be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Staff believes that the variance requested is the minimum necessary. And staff believes that the strict application of the terms of the Avon zoning ordinance will constitute a practical difficulty if applied to the property. And that's due to the fact that the rear east parcel does not have a frontage along a public road and is therefore effectively undevelopable in its current state. Staff believes that the need for the variance was not caused by the owner, previous or present. Therefore, we recommend approval of this petition subject to no conditions. and I'll take questions.
Questions for staff? Bill, again, both these parcels are currently zoned R3, correct?
Yeah.
And the pole barn being built, is that to accommodate a business, and is that
It's
okay with
it's an accessory.
it's an accessory use to
It would
the,
be an accessory use to the parcel, to the home that's on the adjoining property, and that's how this whole thing started. I think they filed for a permit to build a building. We got looking at it and said, well, you can't build a building on this lot because doesn't have a primary use on it. We got to thinking about what's the best course of action. We thought, well, the best course of action is combine these lots. So file an administrative subdivision. They filed the administrative subdivision, and we were reviewing the administrative subdivision. We found out that it didn't meet the depth to width ratio. And so we had to tell them, well, you're going to have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get a variance of that before we can act on the plat. This is sort of the same thing that we had in the last petition.
and
So it's one of those sort of loops that just seems to never end on this one.
the other, our black and white copies in our packets aren't real great here. Am I seeing correctly? It looks like they share a driveway with the property to the south. Is that correct?
Is that correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He did the site visit on these ones. So yeah, I mean, probably there's a string of about 10 lots along this road, and they're all the same. And they've all got a meets. So it's like a frontage subdivision, old frontage subdivision with older homes on it. And they've each got a meets and bounds lot right behind them. Boop, boop, boop. And the ones outside the county, actually, a lot of them have garages and stuff on them. And so when we annex these two lots of that group of 10, probably just a quirk of our ordinance that they needed a variance to put a garage on that unimproved lot or combine the lots. County probably under their zoning ordinance would have let them do it by right.
Questions for staff? Okay.
Again, Andy Colt with Comer Law Office, 71 West Marion Street in Danville. Just to give you, I'm not really sure how this happened, but I can tell you that that row of homes along Avon Avenue, that subdivision, that's Bland's Acres. That was platted in 1963. At that time, everything behind there was it was vacant to my knowledge. Stonebridge subdivision to the east was then platted in 1997. So I suspect that somewhere during that time, the owner of what was east of Bland's subdivision sold some ground off, and it got developed, and it just ended up leaving a middle area there, or there was intended with one of these subdivisions to be maybe a road coming through somewhere, but that's all speculation. But that's, you had 1963, 1997, and somewhere in between you end up with all these back lots. I think Bill's probably correct. Says, here's one right here, you'll see some garages on some of these. I think when the town annexed this, had they brought in other lots with them, it would have been sort of a grandfathered issue since they were already there. We are in the unique spot that now we're coming to do it, but we're in Avon and not the county. So yeah, the objective is to combine this into one single lot. So if we were to get this variance this evening, then we'll have a new lot description there, and you'll be eliminating the fact that you've got a lot with no road frontage back there that could potentially end up in a third party's hands down the road, whether through tax sale or otherwise.
We'll go ahead and open up the public meeting at this point. Does anyone wish to speak on this? Last chance. We will close the public hearing. Discussion, questions?
I do have a question. Looking at those lots, it looks like there is something already built on that back lot. Is that correct? What am I seeing
I
there?
think in that aerial that you might see some vehicles there. I mean, they're not there now, but is that what that is? There's no improvements back there.
The property to the south.
Yeah, would you come up and state your name for the record? And
My name is Steve Rode, the owner of the property in the application. The property to the south has a pole barn on it already, and the property to the north on these back lots already has a pole barn on it.
I think she's
Right.
talking about
But-
right here.
On this property, there are no buildings on that back lot. I do
This-
have a motorhome parked there, and that may be what's showing in that picture.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you.
So Bill, we wouldn't be looking at this if we weren't, if the combined lots weren't 0.39 over the, I mean, it's just that we just eked over the ratio.
Barely, yeah, 30 feet, basically.
And the one thing in the criterion 4, I like what you wrote there too, that this really brings it closer into compliance. It's better than the use variance. So I think that is well written, and I do agree with the staff comments there.
I think the request from the petitioner is extremely reasonable, and I suspect there's been an extraordinary amount of patience exercised on the petitioner's part to get to this point. But I don't, to me, this is a no-brainer. Of course, it should be combined.
I don't think there's any question there is definitely a practical difficulty in the use of the property.
Mhm.
I initially had concerns about, safety and general welfare and property values. But if the commercial use of, if the pole barn is an accessory use of the property and not a commercial use, that's not really a problem. I was a little bit concerned about having that shared driveway go so close to both houses. But again, pole barn's an accessory use. It's not an issue.
May I make a comment? Steve Rode. I also own the property to the south. So the two houses that share the driveway have common ownership, and they are tenant occupied. And the daughter is on the north house and the mother-in-law, or the mother is in the south house. So it is a shared driveway.
They probably like it that way.
Any other questions or discussion?
Only that, to make sure that we address what we're recommended as far as all the criterion. I would agree that what staff indicates here, that the criterion have been met.
If there's no other discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move we approve variance 2111, 709 North Avon Avenue.
A motion by Mr. Guckenberger. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And we have a second by Mrs. Ransberg. Any discussion? Ready for a roll call vote?
Take a roll call vote. Catherine Ransberg,
4.
Ann Inman,
4.
Marcy Tashler, Paul Guckenberger,
4.
Marcus Turner.
4.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And moving on, next item is public comment. Does anyone wish to speak? We ran them all off.
Is it something we said?
And since no one wants to speak, we are adjourned. Thank you. Stick around to sign papers.